We've had a few people ask about this situation, so I thought I would address it right now, and that is when you have to take sports pictures under bad lighting. For example, high school soccer here, under outdoor lighting, which looks pretty good to the human eye, but to the camera, not so good. And what I wanted to do was make sure I put my camera was set to reliance on the shutter speed so I get good quality in terms of focus, made everything a little dark. So let's take a look at how we can fix this. First of all, I'm going to duplicate the image just so I have an original that we can come back to at the end and compare. So obviously there's lots of different approaches we can take, but the first one I would suggest is to use levels. Now I should also add that I'm attempting here to use techniques that if I wanted to I could record as an action. So therefore if I had a whole folder full of images I could basically fix them all by running a batch action. So first of all, I'll just try, might as well try using levels. That looks not too bad. It's a bit of an improvement. Now, if I try to lighten up too much more, see if I push it too far, see how it's definitely entered. You can see some noise coming in. So that's probably a little much. So in my experimentations, one of the things that I found was if I did levels first and then did this, duplicate the background layer. I'm using Command or Control J, change the blend mode to screen, which is going to lighten it up even more, but for whatever reason doesn't seem to introduce quite as much noise, and just lower the opacity a bit to get kind of the brightness level that I want. So this is where I was at before and now, and that's looking pretty much the brightness, the intensity that I want. So I'm going to merge these layers together. Now we have to deal with the fact that there is a bit of noise. If we zoom in a bit here, you can certainly see that there is some noise in the dark areas. So we want to basically try to fix that as best we can. So we're going to do that by changing the mode to, LAB color. Part of the reason I'm doing this is it lets me address things a little differently. If I had stayed in RGB mode, I couldn't do what I'm going to do now, which is to look at the A and the B channels. In LAB mode, that's where the color information is. So when you look at those two channels, you can see that in fact they are very noisy. So here's what I want to do. I want to be able to look at the A channel but still see the results in color, or I should say work on the A channel, I suppose, and see the results in color. The way you do that, click on the A channel in the channels palette and then press the tilde key, which is the one right beside the number 1 under the escape key. See what that does? Look at the channels palette. I'm still in the A channel, but I'm seeing the results in color. Now we'll go ahead and start making some changes. So first of all, we'll do a Gaussian blur. Put this down here, we can see. Now, here's the original. You can see it's very noisy. I can actually get away with blurring quite a bit because we're just blurring the color information. See how the detail, it's not like I'm blurring the photo. If I turn this off, you can just it's hard to see at this level of detail, but you can really see it works. So now we'll do the same thing on the B channel. Click on the B channel and make sure that tilde key is you're still getting the same result. Now I'll just press Command and Control F, which will reapply the same filter to the B channel. So now if we actually look at these, you can see that the A channel and the B channel are a lot more, the noise has disappeared pretty much. So now we'll look at the lightness channel. Now here the problem is I couldn't do the same thing. Let me zoom in again in this area. Because of course if I did a Gaussian blur it would lose detail. So here's how we take advantage of a filter that was introduced in CS2, which is the reduce noise filter, which of course brings up the enormous dialog box, which is great when you're working on a normal Photoshop, but for filming it makes it pretty tough. What I would normally do would be do the same thing. Now look at this filter window, make the changes, and also see how that affected things on the photo itself. So basically what you need to do is experiment here. You want to put this strength pretty high and start playing around with the preserving the details, because we want kind of a happy medium where some of the noise will go away, but at the same point we won't get rid of too much detail. So let's put this all the way down for a second so you can see if I put this strength all the way up, it's definitely, see how that noise is just going away. Look in the sky here how it's gone away, but I'm a little worried the detail is going way too much. So I'm going to pull back a little bit of this detail as well. Now this is where, again, if I had a big enough screen I could look at it in color and see how it's doing, but I think that's going to do a pretty good job somewhere around there. I'm hampered a little bit by my filming area, but of course you wouldn't be faced with that problem. So now we can go back to, oops, sorry, I interrupted the reduce noise filter. My mistake, I'm sorry. I forgot that filter took an extra step. Now we can go back to the lab, zoom back out to our original size. It's not looking too bad, but there's a couple things I would do. First of all, let's go back and work just on the lightness channel and then do shadow highlight. By doing this, we're not changing the color, we're just trying to make our shadows a little brighter. So somewhere in around this range. Again, I could have, actually let's do this. Let's press the tilde key. So I'm still working on the lightness channel, but now when I do shadow highlight, I will see the results a little better. And you can't see this of course, but I'm clicking here is the preview. That's a little bit high because just a little noise coming back in. Something like that. Now the other thing is when I did the step of blurring the A and the B channel, very often that makes the colors lose a bit of their vibrancy. So finally we will just do a hue saturation adjustment layer. And all we're going to do is just push the saturation up a little bit. Try and make the colors look back kind of like the way they were. And finally, since I'm already in this mode, I would also just do a nice little either, whoops, slip of the mouse there, either Smart Sharpen or Unsharp Mask. I'll just use Unsharp Mask because it's a little easier to see here in terms of the size of this window. Something like that. And there we go. Now let's just check it out and see the difference. Here is the before picture, very dark, very hard to see. Here is the after picture. It's not, it's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than it was, and we've done it in a way that it doesn't look too noisy. And remember, the steps were done in such a way that I could record this in action. I applied levels, I duplicated the layer and changed the blend mode to screen, and then merged. I switched to LAB mode and blurred the A and the B channel, and then used reduced noise on the lightness channel, did shadow highlight on the lightness channel, did an overall hue saturation, and then unsharp mask on the lightness channel. Now at this point, of course, I could change the mode back to RGB, and if I'd been recording all these steps, I'd have a nice action that I could run as a batch on a whole folder and take images that were kind of beyond repair to the point where they're certainly acceptable, and as I've done, you could use as a web photo gallery. It's a pretty cool technique, and you can use it for all kinds of situations where images are way too dark. Hey, and as an added bonus to this technique, one of the things that you may discover is as you use all those steps to lighten the photo, you may see details that you just never saw before because it was too dark, and now you can see them. It's pretty cool. I'm Dave Cross. We'll see you next time.